My Literacy Narrative by lyndsis. My literacy narrative sparked when I was lucky enough to go to Guatemala in February of 2015. I would travel to many cities within Guatemala and stayed at a new hotel each night. I was also lucky enough to go on this trip with my own literacy sponsor, my mom. This was so important to me and really impacted my trip in a positive way. I went on this 2.5-week trip with a group called Cooperative for Education. COED was founded by two brothers named Jeff and Joe Berninger. Their mission statement is to break the cycle of poverty through education. They attempt to do this by bringing books, computers, and other school supplies to the schools who do not have the funds for them or don't have the access to the supplies due to being located up in the mountains. Their main goal is for the schools to be self-sustainable after a few years of COED helping them to get on their own 2 feet. While I was in Guatemala for 2.5 weeks, we traveled to many different schools in the surrounding cities. We visited over 10 schools, all of which were located up in the mountains. At the schools, we would read to the kids in English to help them learn and be more comfortable with it. They would also read to us. For the most part, they would read in Spanish, but sometimes attempted at reading in the little English that they did know. They mainly only knew Spanish and their own native family dialect. The ones who did know a little English wanted more practice reading it. This obviously caused a large language barrier. As you can see in this picture, there are 3 translators up on the stage. There is someone from COED who translated the Spanish to English for us. However, there was also someone from the school who translated the Spanish into a Mayan dialect for the older family members who came to the ceremonies at each school. This was necessary because most of the elderly did not even know Spanish. This is when I realized exactly how poor these schools were and how underdeveloped their school systems really are. As you can see, the schools look more like an outdoor play area than an actual school building. COED would also try to bring different items to each school, along with the school supplies. We brought things like bookshelves and desks. This was a great gesture by COED and was something everyone was able to appreciate. Since there was a large language barrier, we would always resort to playing games. Once the basic conversation was over, either due to my lack of Spanish or their lack of English skills, we would start to play games. These included soccer, bubbles, thumb wars, and even new games that they were able to teach us once we were there. This shows that games are universal and something that everyone can really appreciate. These games are something everyone knows and a good way for us to connect without using verbal communication. At the time, I did not realize that this was improving my literacy narrative, but now looking back and after learning about discourses, I can see that it definitely was. This trip allowed me to meet so many people I never would have met before. For instance, this is my friend Madeline, who I made a very deep connection and friendship with during the day that I spent with her. I was given the opportunity to dive into a culture I was unfamiliar with and become familiar. Through this, I was able to add a discourse into my life. I consider the citizens of Guatemala, along with those who went on the trip with me, to be some of the most influential people in my life. While I was there, I was given the opportunity to send an individual student, Lesvia Chuluk, to school for the next 6 years. By doing this, she will be able to graduate from high school. I was also given the opportunity to understand how the women of Guatemala work and make a living for themselves and for their families. This was so interesting because I was able to see the difference in their lives since they did not have a full education. This is one of the main reasons I wanted to send Lesvia to school for the next 6 years. One thing I also learned so much about was their dancing. In Guatemala, it is customary to dance for any guest that you have. This was nice because dancing was like a game in a way. Dancing is like a game in the sense that everyone understands it and appreciates the movement. This also doesn't require verbal communication, but allows us to connect to one another. I also learned so much about culture and diversity in Guatemala that I will forever be grateful for. Without going on this trip, I wouldn't be intrinsically motivated to continue traveling to different corners of the world and helping those in need.